Hello.
Hello.
Welcome
Thank you.
to Magical Theory Podcast Time.
It's Magical Theory Podcast time. It was almost Magical Theory Podcast time about a minute ago,
Yes.
but
I was
the
messing
intro
with
did not play.
I messed with the buttons and then I hit the wrong button and it went to our faces.
Clicking buttons, taking names. Yes, the wand was not
I did not
prepared.
have my wand or my technology ready. My magical phone.
Yes. This phone setup is quite nice.
Yeah.
So it connects to Streamlabs, and it allows you to control things that you would otherwise, like it's on the computer, but it's connected. What is it, by Bluetooth?
Oh, it's connected through, it's like Wi-Fi. We have to be on the same Wi-Fi network.
Okay.
So it does that. I don't know. Well, yeah. So regular streamers have usually buy equipment that's like the sound deck, and I have my app that is why I'm like, oh, I can't switch up the scenes. If you're listening to this and you've never seen us live, you're probably like, what are you talking about? That's what I do. Is I push a bunch of buttons and sometimes it doesn't go well. But we're here. We're here.
No, you nailed it.
It's almost the end of January.
Well, yeah, there's still a whole week left.
Well, okay, so we're taking a week off next week for Magical Theory because it is the end of Harry Potter Wizards Unite, and there are other activities going on, but we'll be back in February, which if you're not listening to this in January 2022, then I guess it doesn't matter. Hello, welcome to the past, I guess.
It's always the past. It was always the past.
It's always the past, yeah.
Yeah, no, it is a melancholy week of the end of Wizards Unite. One of the staples of the WizardPhD community.
Yeah, if you aren't familiar with Harry Potter Wizards Unite, it's a mobile augmented reality game made by Niantic and WB Games, where you are a member of the Statute of Secrecy Task Force, and you were recruited as a volunteer to combat a calamity that has impacted the wizarding world and is risking exposure of the wizarding world because they're just memories of foundables, just different scenes of people, places, and things from the wizarding world just out and about. And your job is to use magic to make them go back and like get out of here, back to your time and place.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It's been over 2.5 years now, or just about to. Yeah, over 2.5 years now. And I think it's sad to be ending, but there's a lot of journeys left to happen, which is fun.
Yeah.
It was, it has a good game. It was a good story. I think, Lynette, you probably have some plans for trying to communicate that story to people who have never played the game.
Yeah.
So that they can understand how it fits into, the Harry Potter lore and what it all means.
One day I will.
Yeah.
I have mentioned Constance Pickering, I think, a couple times on this podcast without any context. So
yeah,
she is probably my favorite character. That's like I don't even know how to describe her. Like new character. Obviously, I love Hermione. I have some things to say about Hermione in this chapter. Just to express my love for Hermione. I'm a Hermione stan.
Yes. Oh, yes. Should we get into it then?
Yeah, let's get into it.
Wands ready. Upside down. Turn to page 288, The Weighing of the Wands. Today's lesson is called Unshared Burden. The chapter begins with Harry remembering the night before, ready to convince Ron. Ron is gone, so Harry reluctantly plans to go to breakfast alone. Hermione meets him at the door with toast, however, saving him the embarrassment. She believes Harry did not put his name in the goblet and encourages him to write Sirius. Harry does, and Hedwig ignores him because he chooses a less conspicuous owl. Classes are terrible, as are the hallways, and everywhere in Hogwarts, as Harry is accosted from almost all sides. Hagrid also believes Harry, but Snape and Slytherins terrorize him worse than usual. Colin Creevey arrives with a respite midway through potions that Harry is meant to have his wand weighed for the tournament. When Harry arrives, Rita Skeeter conducts an ethics-free interview of Harry. The wands are weighed by Ollivander himself, and the champions have their photos taken. When Harry finally returns, there is response from Sirius as the tournament is set to begin.
An ethics-free interview. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Well, we'll get to read it in a second.
Okay, because
But
I would talk about her the whole time.
okay, so this is like not really, I mean, this is kind of more stepping back as a reader.
Mhm.
I really enjoy when there are letters in the text of the book. Like even from the very beginning where it's like, "Welcome to
Like from
Hogwarts."
Sirius?
No, just any sort of
Oh, I
letter where
see.
you're reading it and it's like, "This is a letter." And
Okay.
part of this is such a silly reason. I'm a very slow reader, and so I very much enjoy dialogue heavy or like something where it's like indented and it's like a contained thing because it makes me feel like I'm reading faster and I'm accomplishing something towards my goal. So that's just a very minor thing
Interesting.
that I like. I like having that break where it's like I don't know, it feels kind of like oh, this little section, like go and read through it and then you're in the next part. Anyway, but that's not why I wanted to bring it up, but
Okay.
it's a perspective that's not quite dialogue because you don't talk to people like you
Mm.
do in writing. Like when you're
Mm.
writing them a letter, it's not just casual conversation where it's dialogic back and forth. Um, but uh it does give sort of like it's like another mode of communication that for us to kind of understand what's happening because even in dialogue you have choices like thinking from Harry's perspective in his head like last chapter he didn't tell Ron like
Mhm.
what he was actually thinking and then similar in the process of writing a letter like you choose your words and like you have that time
Yes, and
to
there's
think
something
about it.
interesting in a book like this too, because often a letter is read in real time by just one person,
Mhm.
and the writer is not present usually,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Almost all the time.
Mhm.
And that's what happens here, right? So we get like Harry's reaction to the words as if Sirius is saying it to him or whatever letter you're talking about.
Mhm.
And then like but you as you mentioned, the writer had to sort of they knew they were writing a letter.
Yeah, yeah.
So it has a different tone and pace. Yeah, it's
Mhm.
kind of interesting for
Yeah.
sure.
So I like the letters in here. Um Also,
Yes.
everyone hates Harry again.
Oh man. This is the worst it's ever been. I
I
mean,
feel
I
so
guess
bad.
Chamber of Secrets was pretty bad
Yeah. I
because he was being accused really of something much worse than
Yeah.
this one.
Okay, so in that section, Harry's talking about the Hufflepuffs and he's like, "Oh, they
Justin.
normally." Yeah, so he brings up both Ernie Macmillan and Justin Finch Fletchley. And I'm like, "Dude, Ernie was the one who spread a rumor that you were the heir of Slytherin." And Justin, well, you dueled him in class and tried to say, well, technically that was Draco's fault, but he started speaking parcel tongue and everyone freaked out.
Yes.
Like, how are those two people the people
Well, we
that you
do.
are most, like,
Yes. So
you
I
get
agree
along
in
with?
general. We do know, I guess, that Justin like really manned up and apologized
That's
in
true.
book 2, where he,
Maybe
like, came up
those
to
were
him
the
and was like, "I'm sorry.
bonding
I know it's not
memories.
you. You would never hurt Hermione." I think is
Yeah.
when it happens. It's like, "I know you wouldn't have done
But
something to Hermione."
here is the parallel here, though. Like, Harry okay, this is because I've been thinking about Ron, and yes, I am frustrated and disappointed that he's not being friendly with Harry anymore, but,
Yeah.
like, Harry's not going around gloating about it. He's literally say like his whole thing is like, I don't know what is happening. Like it's not like
This
he's a good like liar. He's not Draco. He's not like conniving.
this
This is,
is a
you know?
really great Ron in particular is a really great example of pride. What
Mm,
a form of pride that I think we are all really familiar with, which is when you have sort of put your flag in the ground
mhm.
and then you know you're wrong
Yeah, yeah.
and you're just not able to
That's absolutely in character for Ron in
it's
general
in
anyway.
character for everybody. I mean, literally, like, I know almost nobody who can relinquish being wrong as far as its effect on their ego, like, super quickly.
Mm.
And yes, I think, like, this is particularly egregious because it's like, well, do you, yeah. because Hermione is probably saying to Ron, like, you just feel this way because you have all these brothers. Like the same exact thing that she says to Harry to
Hermione.
try to make sense of
She's
it
just
all.
trying to make, like, come on, this is what's happening. And Harry's just like, blah, blah, blah. You tell Ron. And she's just like, oh my gosh.
But once
How
Ron
is Hermione the
accuses
adult in the room?
Harry, that's a stake of ego to me. Like it's almost like a wager of part of Ron's ego to be like, Harry, like, I know this about you. You did this. Why? How can you not tell me? You're betraying me and all this. And like you see the layering of the sort of accusations and things that if the base one isn't true, that
Mhm.
Harry did not put his name in the fire,
Mhm.
then like all the rest aren't true, and you have to walk them all back. And it's extremely difficult. It's extremely difficult to do it, right? I mean, like it's which is just a reason. It's not like an excuse for Ron, but it's a sort of a explanation for how weird he is acting, right?
Yeah. You don't like it still.
Yeah.
Don't like it. Harry also has I feel like we've talked about this before. When was the other time? There was another moment I remember. Harry has been like when he has like or maybe it's in this book. Was it in a previous chapter?
For
No,
what? What?
maybe it was Sirius, where we are in Harry's like inner thoughts, but he's like clearly thinking darkly. Like it's described as
Because
he's
he wasn't sure
thinking
if he wanted
darkly.
to fight him or to talk to him.
Well, there's a couple things. There's Hermione talking to Harry. I don't remember the context of the conversation at this moment, but it was because he couldn't do the summoning charm.
Mm.
And Hermione's like, it's really simple, as she's just like,
Accio,
bringing,
accio,
yeah,
accio.
she's just like bringing things everywhere. And she's like, you just need to concentrate and or something like that, or not be distracted, or I don't remember. And he's just like, wonder why that was. And like it's described as, said Harry darkly, as
Mm.
Cedric Diggory walked past, surrounded by a large group of simpering girls. And it's just like,
Simps.
I know. So actually I looked that up and I was like, is this the like origin? Well, apparently it's not. I didn't find anything for that specific word. I found it for simpleton, and then I found like a context like with regards to rap music, but not the exact word simpering. But I feel like it fits. I feel like it's
It
all part of the
does. I'm not
same
sure I've
family of
ever
things.
heard of the word simpering until
I
this
know when
chapter.
I looked at it, I was like, oh my gosh, look at that word.
Whimpering.
Whimpering.
Simple.
Simple.
Simpering.
Yep.
That's how words are made up.
Yeah. Speaking of words,
Mhm.
we have Draco and Harry dueling. Just
Furnunculus.
why? Why? Yeah, furunculus. Did you know that furuncle is another term for a boil? Fur uncle,
Yes,
not nuncle,
I think
but
so.
uncle.
I've heard of it, yeah.
So that's this in terms of etymology of spells in the wizarding world. And
Oh, yeah. No, she does that a lot.
mhm.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And the boil word
Immobulus.
furuncle is derived from the Latin word furunculus, which means petty thief, which is a little like, I don't know how Boyle
Yeah, no, there's some
connects to
idiom
that,
in
but
there, right? I
yeah.
mean, yeah, yes. Mm.
And then hold on.
Mm.
Dinsagio,
Mhm. Is that what Malfoy cast
that's
back?
the one with the teeth. So yeah, both of these they kind of ricochet. One hits Goyle. Goyle gets the
Blast
boils,
them.
and then Hermione gets the
Goyle
teeth.
Boyle. Yeah, the teeth.
Oh, poor
It's
Hermione.
cruel.
So
Both of them are cruel.
the incantation for that is derived from dens.
Mm.
This is Latin again. Dens, which means tooth, and agio, which translates to increase or grow.
Mm.
So there you go. There's your spell etymology of the day, of the chapter.
Very interesting.
Yeah, but she does do that a lot with with names, with spells, obviously.
My mind right now,
Mm.
I went to because I described those spells as cruel,
Mm-hmm.
and I was thinking
They're
like,
hexes.
oh, like there's something slightly less cruel hexes. Yes, hexes and curses. Slightly less cruel than or slightly less cruel is like stupefy, which is just a straightforward like you're attempting to do something, It just like knocks them out as opposed to like
Mm,
I don't know, pain causing spells. And
yeah.
I was thinking about like I wonder if their aurors have laws on what spells they can use or like should use at
Well, I would
certain
probably opt for
settings.
like a stronger spell than like just making someone's teeth grow.
Yes,
Maybe. I
yes,
don't
yeah,
know. I mean,
yes.
I guess you could
Well,
distract
there's
them with
something
like one of those spells and then you can take them out. Like, oh, all of a sudden your teeth are growing like past your face and you're just like, what's happening here? And then you
there's something
stupefy
really
them.
interesting that we will start learning about the way that spells work. I don't know that it always is this way, but it develops this way where um they learn to cast without speaking
Mm,
in like book 5 and 6, I think. I don't know. And it's right around the time when there's the legilimens and occlumency conversations going on, and there's a lot going on in terms of defense where like if you know the spell, the counter is like more obvious. It's not like Protego is a protect against everything type spell or something like that.
mm,
There's like
mm-hmm.
ways to defend against specific spells because it's somewhat similar like when we see Dumbledore and Voldemort duel in at least in the movies. It's like there's something, even though they don't speak, that actually gives them a bit of an advantage, but then once you see the spell you can like do specific things to counter it.
Yeah.
So I
It's
guess
not
that
just counter spell over and
yeah,
over.
not
Counter.
just counterspell or
Yeah.
Protego. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Well, with the teeth thing, because this is all supposed to be a double booked potions class.
Yep.
So Snape comes in and is just like, okay, what's going on here? Blah blah blah. Draco lies per usual and is like,
Hmm.
Harry Potter attacked me. Okay, sure. And then Ron steps up and is like, look at what he did to Hermione and poor little Hermione. And then Snape has the audacity to say that he
Snape is
doesn't
a dick.
know. Yes, absolutely. I was so upset. Nobody should be mean to Hermione because she's Hermione. And but also like she's always so sweet.
Yeah.
She's nice, she's good. I'm sorry, Snape. Hermione is the only student who wants to offer anything from your questions or whole class discussions. Do you know how
Yeah, but
difficult?
Snape is the kind of teacher that asks questions but doesn't want them to be answered. He wants to
True.
answer them himself.
But do you know how difficult it is to you know how difficult it is to get anyone to talk in whole class discussions? If you're a
Yes.
teacher, you know. You know. So, not just the teachers like Hermione, not
Can you
just
imagine
because she's
Snape lesson
correct.
planning? He
No, he
doesn't
doesn't.
listen.
He just comes
It's
in and
direct
he's just like blah
instruction
blah blah
all
blah blah.
day, every day.
But teachers like Hermione, not just because it's not because she's accurate, it's because she participates. PSA to everyone. Participation is why people like you.
Know it all.
She's not a know-it-all though.
No,
She's
I know.
not like she's just trying her best and she
No,
wants to
she's actually
participate.
participating in the way that schools say they want people to
Mm.
participate in. But
And then Snape's like, I hate this. I hate
yeah,
you.
yeah, Snape just is the worst.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so that was a terrible moment. So but she's in the hospital wing. I did like look up as I was looking up the spell stuff. I saw like what's coming with with her teeth.
Hmm.
But we'll
Oh, yes.
get there.
Yes. It's a little plastic
She's
surgery.
just so sweet. I love
Hmm.
Hermione. And then another moment where Harry has his darkness creeping in. My
Hello,
quote that I wrote
darkness,
down.
old friend.
Harry sat there, staring at Snape as the lesson began, picturing horrific things happening to him if only he knew how to do the Cruciatus Curse. Though to be fair, like this is just like some teenage kid's mind. Okay, this is
Angst.
Moody's fault. Fake Moody's fault for teaching them the unforgivable curse or demonstrating the unforgivable curses. Now it's just in their heads being like, okay,
Well,
if
it's
only.
interesting because we have practical questions about thought
Mm,
and thought policing.
yeah.
And it's really interesting because you could look at somebody like Harry thinking that,
Mm-hmm.
and like, is that a straight line from that to the action?
Yeah.
And if the action needs to be prevented, is that evidence of need that prevention is called for. It's an interesting sort of, because I think we know in this case, like Harry doesn't Cruciatus Snape even when he learns the spell.
Mm.
However, like it's still
Yeah.
that's the dilemma,
Well,
right?
part of I think when people get concerned about that, because this kind of ties back to like um why there is an idea that you shouldn't teach dark arts because you shouldn't even expose or like anything that's bad because you shouldn't expose children to ideas that are you shouldn't engage at all in any sort of
Mm-hmm.
circumstance with things that are quote unquote dangerous or potentially dangerous or whatever it is, like thinking of like it's a
Mm-hmm.
causation effect of
Umbridge.
something like that. Yeah. But Harry just got through dueling it with ridiculous spells, like so I think the idea behind it is like what is the instinct that your mind goes to? Even though it doesn't seem like it's necessarily something that can be controlled, which is another piece of like it's and it doesn't really account for the fact that people can engage critically or thoughtfully or meaningfully with things that without acting upon them or just by like trying to make
Uh,
sense of and
that's the
process.
key, I think,
Yeah.
which is like a lot of people think, as Zia rightly brings up sex education,
Mhm.
that if you lend the official or formal weight to a topic
Mhm.
and discuss it openly and honestly, that somehow that's worse than not discussing it at all in a
Mhm.
formal setting. That
Mhm.
like somehow that you're putting the weight of like a K-12 school behind something like that,
Mhm.
ideas and discussion. I think we know I think we know as a fact that people have these sorts of thoughts regardless of
Yeah.
whether you do it formally or not. And so if you actually openly talk about things, then you're going to put people in a better spot because if it's true, if the discussion is true.
Yeah, so my even though okay, so fake Moody is not a real teacher at this school.
Foodie.
Moody is not. Barty Crouch Jr. is not because the thing with I would be fine with the unforgivable curses being a topic in Hogwarts if you're talking and we've discussed this previously. If you're talking about ethics and morality of like why is it that these are unforgivable? But that
Yes.
is not the discussion. It's
No, no.
like, "Oh, you need to know about this so you can defend yourself because
Yes,
there are
yes.
evil wizards that are going to use this against you."
Right,
Like
right,
there's
right,
it's like
right.
all the way around the circle of the actual core of why is it that it's
Mhm.
something interesting to process and think about rather than saying there is good and evil and it's just a fact, but like exploring it from a more philosophical perspective in terms of like coming. I mean, our
Mhm.
PhDs are in education, so like the process of coming to know, like it's a process. It's not something that you can just pass
Yes.
down and say this is why.
And I think we have a lot of real life examples where this might be relevant. I think any type of martial art,
Mm,
but also self defense classes and also firearms training, where it is enhanced significantly if the practical training of use and like learning martial arts, for example, is combined with understanding the role of violence and how to avoid it and what it actually means
mm,
psychologically. um,
mhm.
I think it's a really interesting piece of education. We do almost none of it in K-12, right? I mean, there's no space. The way the curriculum is designed often is it's bloated beyond capacity already just by trying to get through technical concepts,
Mhm.
as opposed to ever providing space for like, what is math and why do you use it? Why might you
Nobody
not
knows
use
why.
it
I
in
don't know
certain
what math is.
settings? What does it contribute to the larger, relevancy discussions of like how do you process the world and understand, make
Mhm.
sense?
Mhm.
Um, it's more just like here's the next skill to add to the list, the bulleted list.
Yeah. Yeah. But I don't know. Do we ask too much?
No, we don't ask too much. No, most people ask too little is what is true.
Yeah.
It's harder to prepare people to it's harder to conduct real classroom conversations that get into the type of depth we're talking about on
Yeah.
these topics. It's much, much, much easier to just do a bunch of problems or write a bunch of essays or
Yeah.
learn a bunch of facts. It's much easier. And so when it's a path of least resistance and it's also got the stamp of like, this is what we're expecting you to do, because a lot of policymakers are
And
afraid of the deeper
assessment.
conversations because they
How will
believe
you
it belongs.
assess someone's
And assessment, yes.
thought? I don't know.
There's a lot going on for sure. And I think it's not, we as educators, like, it's really fun to read these books from that perspective at times. It's not the most fun perspective, I can
It's
tell you
not
that
fun.
much, but
It's
it's
like,
part of it where
yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
oh, this is kind of interesting because we know about theories of education and what the type of theories that a lot of the professors take on, right? And then Umbridge in book 5 will be such an obvious case of like, oh, okay.
Umbridge is
Yes. Everyone is dangerous. All these kids are ticking time bombs. Don't teach them anything at all.
Okay, so there was a one of the contestants in the Tournament of Houses thing was like an Umbridge stan and loved Umbridge. I would love to ask
I
him,
know.
why is Umbridge your favorite character? Please tell me. Please tell me. Help me understand.
Oh my gosh.
And
And
then
he got like
got the
3
Umbridge
questions about
questions.
Umbridge. Yeah,
oh
it was
my God.
crazy.
Oh my God.
Ugh.
Anyway, Umbridge is not my favorite character.
No, she's my least favorite character.
Um,
Close second.
let's switch
If
gears
it's
to
time.
yeah, it is time. I'm gonna go ahead and talk
Okay.
about her as I find the picture.
Yeah, let me rant for a little bit longer about Rita Skeeter.
Look at this. Oh, wait, can you see it?
Kinda, yeah.
How do I put it on the camera? There we go.
That's pretty good.
This is what she looks like in this book, which you can't really. I guess I can zoom in. Maybe on Discord we can have a closer look, but she does not look all dolled up like the movie. She's Rita's a special
Let me approach this in a different
person.
Different way. So we've talked at some length about this concept of Russell oh shoot, I just forgot. Russell conjugates.
Conjugates, yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Which is this idea that as far as the dictionary is concerned, words are synonyms of each other.
Okay.
But when you introduce how they actually make people feel because of their use cases, that they're not exactly synonyms. They actually cause different emotional reactions.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a great example off the top of my head. But this is just a random one, but like the words found and the word discover.
Yeah,
Find and discover feel differently, even though they're synonyms.
Different,
yes,
like
it does.
Related things.
So there's a lot of examples, and there's a sort of approach, I think, to language that looks at like the use that like it's connected to hyperbole, it's connected to propaganda, it's connected to persuasion in general, rhetoric, and the use of particular words in particular times to make people feel differently. And I was thinking about it when I was looking at what the Quick Quote Quill was writing.
Yeah. First of all, the Quick Quotes Quill, you put it in your mouth.
Yeah, I know.
Which I did not realize.
Maybe she just does that for fun. No,
Does she do that in the movie?
No, she doesn't. But I think it's an indication that it's taking on her voice.
I know.
Yeah.
Like, it makes perfect sense. When I read it, I was like, oh, that's how that magical object
it's like
works.
bot. It's
sense.
a bot.
It's a bot?
It's a bot. I was thinking about bots as well, of like you can script a bot.
Okay.
And like have the bot respond instead of an actual person.
Oh, yeah.
And like
so
you can script it to sound certain ways.
So like, yeah, because I was imagining that, so she did the thing and she said Rita Skeeter, Daily Prophet, whatever. Like, I imagined that was the trigger to like put that in.
It's a test.
To test. And because she tore off the parchment and was just like, all right, seems
it's
good.
working. Yeah. Yes, and the quill is what made me think of the Russell conjugates, because it's related to,
Yeah.
like, the use of adjectives, I think, is the biggest case for Russell conjugates. You're thinking about what adjective to put. I mean, I used it, my example was a verb, but
Yeah.
adjectives are more common in this use, where, like, you can use more extreme adjectives that technically mean the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
and also you can embellish significantly, because
Yeah.
verbs don't need adjectives. That's one important thing to say.
Yeah.
And you can tell the difference between what she says and what Harry says and what is written is generally that it's just a bunch of adjectives get added.
Yeah, what's interesting is that I'm thinking about like how you can use synonyms in
Tasty, yummy
different ways. So like I like synonyms for words because I like precision.
Yes.
So I like this is why like sometimes when I'm like searching for a particular word because I want the precise communicative
Yes. You
aspect
want to
of
say
it.
what you mean.
Yes.
Yes.
And you can also use synonyms in a way that is not that. It's like
Yes.
embellishing. It's like
Yes.
making it not the opposite of precision, which I
Yes.
mean maybe not the opposite, but in an inflammatory way, sort of that
Yes.
is
Yes.
yeah. So that's what you made me think of as we're thinking about synonyms and
Well, and
conjugates
this
and
is a
stuff.
major theme, and I hadn't ever really thought about it in prior reads, but that's the joy of the podcast. Like, a major theme for me in these books is the relationship to truth.
Mm-mm.
What are people's relationships to the truth? How much do they exaggerate or lie
Mm.
compared to, like, and I don't necessarily subscribe to capital T truths,
Mm-hmm.
but I do think that there are bounds to what is true.
Mm-hmm.
Like, things are more and less true, whether they converge on one thing or not together. I don't think so, but because there's perspectives, but I think that people can have different perspectives, but then any perspective can be exaggerated or lied about.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, like, that's where, to me, where the boundary is very rigid in my personal worldview, which is like, you can't, what the quick quotes quill is doing is wrong. You can't do this type of thing. And especially you can't market it as journalism, which is a whole nother bucket of issues. But we see Harry is not crying.
Yeah, no, he is
So you can't
absolutely
say
not
there are
crying.
tears in his eyes, right? That paints the whole picture differently. Whether or not he's crying paints the whole thing differently.
Yeah. Well, so you're okay, this is a weird like my mind jumped to thinking about research and claims and like data and stuff like that. And so part of like different paradigms of like what is like what is true. You have like observational, so like we can see things or things that are related to your senses. And then for things where, especially in education research, where you can't really see the learning that's happening in your brain, you can't see your thoughts in your brain. So you have to rely on what people tell you. And so, like, with both of those, like, categories of evidence, like, there is no evidence that backs up what she said. Like, he didn't say that he, like, felt some kind of way about his parents or
And
whatever.
it'll only be hearsay.
Yeah.
So this is where something that I always bumped on in the movies is that she insists on saying he's 12 years old. That doesn't make sense. That's not who she is. She would never do something that is so easily traceable to fact. Now, I feel differently now. I think people do this a lot. But that would be extreme propaganda and brainwashing to think that Harry Potter is a different age than he is. Because you know when Voldemort fell. Everybody knows this.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of him being famous. That's why I always bumped on that. And she doesn't do it in the book, at least as far as I could tell.
You know, I wonder if in part that's why she like took him into the broom closet and then like nobody's there to say like whether or not he's crying or whatever.
Oh yeah.
And then she like packs it up when Dumbledore walks in, which Dumbledore had, it's not just that she writes for the Daily Prophet, she also writes books about people.
The Life and Lives of Albus Dumbledore.
Yep. Oh, apparently
she
has 3 gold teeth, which I wish we would have seen in the movie.
That's funny. Probably from sucking on the quill.
Oh my gosh.
Get ink on your teeth. Can't be good.
Yeah.
This is our. Wait, did we meet her already?
I
No, we just heard her write about Moody.
don't.
We heard her write about Moody.
Okay.
So we read her an article.
Yeah, because I
Yes,
feel like,
earlier in
well,
this
Harry
book.
didn't recognize her,
Right.
because it was just described as like whatever the velvet robe.
Can't believe she was in Wizards Unite. Anyway,
She was for
for a fan
FanFest.
fest.
So we have, I have one more thing, and it's just that Sirius writes back,
Yep.
and what made me laugh out loud was that he was like, "Well, I can't say much because this letter might be intercepted. However, here's an exact time and location for us to meet.
Yeah.
Are you good?" I'm like,
You
well,
good?
I don't know how else he would have communicated, like something like
Well,
that.
there's always that paradox of like, in order that if you need more discreet, but you have to ask for it,
Yeah.
the way you're asking
You
for
need-
it must not be discreet enough.
Why don't you have a coded language
Yeah.
or like a
Well,
something to
yes.
decipher? Teach Harry some, like, I don't know, Caesar ciphering. What are the other ones that we did? Speaking of Wizards Unite again, we did those decoded messages.
Yes, we did.
Oh my gosh, I can't remember all of them. That was a fun time though.
It was.
Yeah. Okay.
All set?
Yeah, I'm all set.
Okay.
All right. Until next
next
time.
time.
Wands
Wands ready.
ready.